You're listening to Life Check Yourself with life coach, transformational leader, and dating and relationship badass, Marni Battista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important life and love issues you want to know about. So, if you're ready to life check yourself in your relationships, your career, and the areas of your life that matter most to you, and you're not afraid to be called out on your, stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
Life Check Yourself with Jeremy Hamburg and Llana Frank. How to navigate the world of relationship and dating when you're neurodivergent. Ladies, I think that I have been dreaming to have guests like this on the show for years, and they I don't know if I manifested them, but they just have a really good PR agent. But Jeremy and Ilana Hamba are friendship and dating coaches. And what's beautiful, what makes them so unique, is that they teach strategies and skills that empower autistic and neurodivergent adults to find community, make friends, start dating, and build relationships. So if you ever watched Love on the Spectrum, we get to really dive into the full experience of what that can be. I know I was touched by that show so many years ago, and then being able to work with different clients now who are neurodivergent and being able to support you, if that's you, in this way, so juicy for us. So Llana has over 16 years of experience as a special education teacher in New York City, and Jeremy has over 14 years, although they don't look old enough, honestly, to do that, as a social coach for autistic and neurodivergent adults. And their passion is their cutting-edge strategy and skills program called Social Life 360, which teaches their clients how to confidently meet new people and new places. I'm just so excited to have this conversation. And let's just go back to, I think for me, Love on the Spectrum was probably the first time that really being able to see what that experience is like for people. And that, of course, is on one end of the spectrum. But I think it's the first time that we all sort of got to see, first of all, that everybody could use a coach. Do you want to talk about that journey and how you all have sort of been doing this probably for longer than that with real people?
Yeah, I have a lot to say about Love on the Spectrum. Starting with the fact that one of the stars of season 3 and the upcoming season 4 is going to be a guest speaker on our weekly community call for our Social Life 360 program clients next week.
Wait, which guy? Because I love them all.
This girl is Danny Bowman, who is very, very into animation. If you watch the season,
my favorite.
She's gonna
entrepreneur. She has a successful business. She's really cool.
So we were on a panel with her a couple of weeks ago at Comic-Con Los Angeles, and we asked her to be a guest speaker on our weekly community call for our clients on Wednesday, and we're excited to welcome her. But what's interesting, and I talk about this kind of briefly in the free training that I give. I started working in the autistic and neurodivergent community in 2010. I was running a dating workshop out of the Jewish Community Center in New York City. And the work that we did actually spurred an award-winning film. There was a film that debuted by the producer Rachel Israel at the Tribeca Film Festival. It won Best Film.
Of that.
The Change. It was about two neurodivergent young adults who met at a fictitious autism support group and fell in love. They were my students in my dating group, and the very first place that movie was screened was in my workshop. And looking back on that time, I think the reason why it was an award-winning film is because the idea of seeing autistic and neurodivergent people dating was such an anomaly. And, going back to 2010, when I started being a dating coach for people with autism, before I expanded to friendship and community building and neurodivergence more generally, when I would tell people that I'm an autism dating coach, their head would pop off their shoulders, metaphorically speaking.
Right.
What the hell are you talking about? It didn't make any sense to people. And then Love on the Spectrum came out.
Right.
And suddenly people are like, oh, I get it. I get it now. I get why you do what you do. And by the way, that includes my mom. My mom would watch Love on the Spectrum on the treadmill at the gym and just bawl her eyes out because she was so touched by the work that I was doing while also being a full-time lawyer.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Well, I want to talk about two specific things. And then, Llana, I want to hear your story. But because this is what I learned from watching this show. Two things. One is that the skills that are being taught are not just for neurodivergent people. Like, I remember a scene where they're literally like rolling the ball, trying to teach them how to have a conversation. Yep. And I have used that metaphor for all my clients because whatever their place, the way they operate in the world, if they're like a super assertive type A neurotypical person, they don't know how to throw the ball back and forth sometimes, right? They fill the space, right? Or they take all the conversation, or they expect the guy to do all the work. So what I love about this is that all the things that we're going to talk about here, I think in some ways are appropriate for all of us, because if we like peel it back to our basic human need to connect and that we're never really taught it, it kind of is appropriate for everyone. It's just like, choose your adventure and how you're going to implement that. So one question I want to ask, because we got to talk about Dani really quick since you guys get to meet her or talk to her in your community. Llana, I'd love your take on this. So when she goes on the date, if you guys haven't watched this, you just need to watch this season. And she's going on the date and she's really talking about, what she wants. And the guy has to be into anime. And I'm like, and I was thinking, she's talking about her work all the time. I'm thinking that neurotypical women do this all the time, by the way, on a date. They're judging a guy because he's doesn't have the career that they think he should have, or they're not interested in the same things. And so I'm wondering, like, would you have said, if you were coaching, or if you guys were coaching Dani, would you have said, go on another few dates with this guy? Or do you think she made the right call?
Interesting. Wow. Very interesting. I think we would coach her in a way that she could open her mind past animation.
Yes.
I think there has to be some equal level of, like, the playing field needs to be equal. And she's an entrepreneur. I think the gentleman that she was out with was not he didn't have the same level of education. So I think there's a disconnect there, but she was a little bit rigid and closed-minded that she wants somebody that's specifically anime. So there are other paths that people can choose in life, and it could balance each other out as opposed to having a single focus in life.
Jeremy, what do you think?
So we actually, one of the things that makes us different from every other skills program out there is that we know that our clients see the world in terms of formulas and diagrams and processes. And so one of the diagrams that we have in our program that I really love is a diagram that shows how limited your dating pool is when you don't open your mind past a very limited set of desires. And I think about that a lot, because one of the things that can come along with neurodiversity, as Llana said, can be some rigidity about thinking. I want X and not want Y. And sometimes it's hard just using speaking logic to change people's minds. And that's not just a neurodivergent thing, that's a human thing.
Right.
But when you show someone visually how just wanting X reduces their pool to something so small that it makes the likelihood of success small, right? It allows them to visually see why it's important to open their mind to other, what we call, groups that they may have been marginalizing or neglecting.
I love this. I was just getting an example of a neurotypical client who's like, I have a serious aesthetic around design. So let's just an anime design, whatever it is, right? Whatever your thing is. And she's like, if I dated a guy and he bought his furniture at Wayfair, like, no way. And I was like, and I'm thinking while you're talking, like, I should have literally done the math. Like, how many men have a fashion or design aesthetic on the planet? And then, like, do the chart and be like, okay, sure, if you want to date, like, 0.02% of the entire population of men, go for it. Again, I just wanted to show everyone that we're talking about atypical daters, but like we're all human. Okay, Llana, what were you going to say before I cut you off?
No problem. Yeah, I was just going to add that sometimes one of the big focuses that we have is finding people, whether it's dating, whether it's friendship, finding people that share a common interest. So
Yeah.
obviously for Danny, that's animation. But we have to keep in mind that that's so limited, and we often encourage our clients to think about what else can I be interested in, because that will allow them to expand the pool of people that they can meet. Because animation is one thing, but there could be other things, and we show, we have a chart of different interests that people just might not be aware that they might be interested in, and that would allow them to meet more people.
I was thinking the exact same chart.
That's so cool. Okay, I have a question for you. So
share a brain afterwards.
I know, I love that. So I have I told you I have an example of a client that I've been working with, and she has this limiting belief, that like she's too much, like no one will get her, like her capacity, even like on a date, like if there's too much stimulation, too much going on, right? Like it's overwhelming for her. And so we were talking about like, how do you set your environment up to date? And then it gets confusing of like, is it really because it's not the right guy, or because you're not setting yourself up to create an environment for dating that works with how you interact with people? So for anyone who relates to that, and again, this can be introverts or extroverts or whatever it is, right? How do you coach people to sort of set it up without being too controlling, to create a great environment, and then to be able to be discerning rather than picky and rule someone out?
Oh.
Yeah. So one thing that we do with our clients, especially typically men, because, a large majority of our clients are men, but we talk about having consistency with their dating. So when they have a first date, that first date is going to remain the same for every first date that they have, because that's going to be familiar. They're going to know the lay of the land. They're going to know what to expect. They're going to know the sensory impact that date is going to have. So they're in control and they're prepared and they know what to expect.
Yeah. And by the way, this is not just something that's set up for autistic and neurodivergent people. This is something that I did when I was dating. And I think it's really important to, to circle back to something that you were talking about, Marni, which is that we're not teaching autistic and neurodivergent social skills. We are teaching human skills in a way that the autistic and neurodivergent brain can better absorb and download, so that they can go out into the world, observe how it's working, better understand how it's working, and as a result, be a better participant in it. And what Llana was talking about, like having that kind of what I would call a canned first date, that's a human coping mechanism, right? For the uncertainty around dating.
There's some control.
There's some control over it, right? Lots of humans have anxiety. That's not a neurodivergent thing, right? And nothing is more uncertain than a first date. So if like our client in Philadelphia, that you're going to meet at Rittenhouse Square and you're going to walk through this park and you're going to stop at the dog run, and then you're going to go over these train tracks and then end up at the ice cream parlor, right? Even if it doesn't happen exactly like that, there is some semblance of understanding, of certainty about what your time is going to be like, which allows you to give more mental energy to being present in the conversation and enjoying yourself.
I love that. Again, great advice for everyone. So, okay, my experience is so limited, and so I'm going to draw on another television show that I watched, which was super, I thought, amazing in this regard, and that was, I think it's called As We See It. Right?
Wow.
I loved it. Well, I love everything that producer does. My husband was just like, "Can we rewatch Parenthood?" I'm like, all day long. Jason and Katim.
Same.
Yes, and Friday Night Lights. Literally my favorite shows ever. Yeah.
Wow, my mind is.
And I'm like, I just want to follow that guy around. I mean,
That's so cool.
yes. Okay, so one of the things that I really think is interesting in that show, is the idea of like, I loved this character, and I can't remember his name, but he's like, talking to his dad, and he's like, "Can I pass?" like, will people know, right, that I'm not neurotypical, right? Like, and the young girl who's like, sleeping with the guy at work, right? And I think for people who are neurodivergent and they're trying to like, pass or keep it a secret. Oh, can you guys talk to that? Because I have clients who are like, should I just say, hey, by the way, I'm on the spectrum? Like, can you guys talk to that? Because I think it's an important issue.
Well, interestingly enough, you and I, Marni, are part of the same coaching community. And there's a third person in the coaching community named Steven Rodriguez, who is really the heart of our answer to this question. So Steven Rodriguez is autistic. He's married. He has children, including I think one autistic teenager, maybe two. And he comes to our Wednesday community calls every few months, and he talks about self-disclosure. And it's super powerful. And it's something that we work on really consciously in our program, because self-disclosure is so important. And what Steven said, I think, is kind of like the answer to your question, which is he'll tell someone, a few minutes into meeting them that they're going to see him do things that, may seem weird to them. Like, he'll say like, hey, by the way, I'm really enjoying our conversation. You're going to probably notice that I'm looking around the room and like probably fiddling with my fingers. And I just want you to know this because my brain is wired differently, but it doesn't mean I'm not paying attention. The fact that I'm here means I'm really, really loving this. And, so I just want to kind of give you a heads up about that. It's very short.
Yeah.
It's a place of strength.
Yeah.
It doesn't belabor the point.
And it doesn't apologize.
Right? There's something about about humans where when we don't understand what we're seeing, we create a narrative in our head to explain what we're seeing. And most of the time that narrative is false, right? And so, what we talk about and what Steven talks about is controlling your narrative. If you let other people decide for you why you're different and what that means, you're going to have a really hard time in life. But if you take control of that narrative and do it from a place of strength, as Llana said, without apology, you can really create a bond in a space to have conversations about other people's differences, about the other person's differences.
Yeah, you're normalizing how imperfect we are and not having any, shame, being unabashed about it. It's funny, I have clients who will have the same question for me about like, I'm 46 and I have 2 kids because I was a single by choice mom. Like, there's no dad. And I'm so embarrassed. Like, I have to explain it, right? Or I'm, in my 50s and I've never been married yet. Like, how do I talk about that on a date? And what you're saying applies to everything, is that you just own it because it's your journey and it's who you are, and what makes you, you amazing and beautiful. So you're recommending have that really quick little just kind of conversation at the beginning. It's not even really a conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a conversation, but it really doesn't have to be. And I think timing is really important, and it differs depending on the situation. And that's something that we talk about very deeply with our clients who are trying to make friends, who are dating. And we also work on the wording with them because words have impact. But yeah, as Steven said, like, I can probably fool you for 5 minutes into thinking I'm just like you, but somewhere around the 5-minute mark, you're going to realize that I'm different. So let's just get that addressed and move on with life.
That's amazing.
One of our clients, he was really struggling to get from the first or second date into third, fourth, fifth, to really build that relationship. And he just got to a 5th date, and he decided it was his decision. Their values didn't align, and it wasn't the right fit for him, even though, they had a great time. But he told us that part of his self-disclosure came up from Love on the Spectrum. The young lady that he was out with was talking about how much she loved Love on the Spectrum, and that was his segue into his self-disclosure about being on the spectrum, which was interesting.
Yeah, he told us that yesterday.
Yeah. That's well, I was thinking now that we're talking about it too, because Jason Katim, who created what's the name of the show on Amazon, Just Like Us,
As We See It.
As We See It.
As We See It.
So he created Parenthood, and there's the kid Max is on the spectrum, and then Sarah ends up dating the guy on the spectrum, and so it's just I think it's a really important thing. So if someone is dating who's neurotypical, and someone gives that disclosure, does that mean they're not able to be in a healthy, intimate, romantic relationship?
If somebody self-discloses to a neurotypical, you're saying?
Yeah, right. Like someone who's listening who's like, I went on a date with this guy, but I'm pretty sure even if he didn't disclose or she didn't disclose, might be on the spectrum. And because I always say, like, don't rule someone out, let them rule themselves out, right? So again, it's a spectrum, so it's massive. Can you talk about that?
I mean, just personally, we know so many couples where one person is neurodiverse, the other is neurotypical. And with this client of ours that self-disclosed that he was on the spectrum, it wasn't a barrier to the relationship because she got to know him for who he is. And then here, we all have our quirks. We all have things. But when you get to know the person's heart and, what a caring and loyal and kind person they are, that's not a barrier to a healthy relationship.
That's amazing. And when you think about these, so let's talk about the skills that you're teaching to the autistic brain. What are some of those skills that I'm going to guess are probably basic things for other humans who are also trying to date effectively?
I think the first skill that we work on, believe it or not, is how to recognize the inner critic voice in your head. You don't necessarily think of that as a social skill or a dating skill, but a lot of our clients, no, I would say almost all of our clients come to us with a deep history of rejection. They have tried, and they've been rejected 1,000 times over, and it makes them skittish.
Yeah.
They go through life feeling broken, lesser, marginalized, and you have to understand what those voices are in your head so that you can move forward. In fact, we had a client who we were coaching yesterday or the day before, yesterday, who said that he actually considered canceling the plans that he had, the date that he had in the hangout that he had with someone else, because he just figured, what's the point, right? It's gonna end as it always has. And he worked through that, which is great. But part of that is understanding, like, that recognition. There's an inner critic voice in my head that's keeping me stuck, right? That's causing me to sabotage myself. That's a really important one. I would say the other really, really, really big one for our clients is what we call the mental library. One of the things that people on the spectrum oftentimes have struggles with is that give and take in a conversation and going deeper in a conversation. So, a lot of them have been taught their entire life how to just ask a series of what we call STQs, small talk questions.
Okay. Yeah.
And when asked a question, they literally interpret the question and give what we call an SFA, a short factual answer. And that's pretty destructive to a conversation, right? It ends up sounding like an interview. Where are you from? I'm from New York. What do you do? I'm a coach. How's that been? It's been great. And so the mental library is kind of a really key component of what we work on with our clients, because it's deeper questions, it's follow-up questions, and really importantly, it's how to have an emotional reaction, how to have a person-centered reaction when the other person shares about their life, and how to give a dynamic response, not just to small talk questions, but to the questions that you ask, so that a conversation has avenues to go. So like a very classic example that we use with our clients all the time is, like, people are like, oh, where are you from? Right. And I could say I'm from New York. Then, like, your response would be like, oh, okay, cool. But I have a mental library that's pretty deep. And so when someone asks, where are you from? I say something like, I'm from a little known street in Upper Manhattan. And something that's really cool is that 5 generations of my family have lived on that street going back to 1940. And then, you'll have some sort of reaction like, oh, wow, that's cool. And I can go deeper and talk about how my family came in 1940. And when my grandma came on the boat from Germany, she saw, fire escapes. And if you know anything about New York fire escapes, they connect to one another. And she thought, my goodness, these people in America are so friendly. Their balconies like a ladder to each other, right? It creates such a different conversation when you have a dynamic response. But to have that dynamic response, you need to have a mental library.
And that just goes back to being prepared, like preparing for the first date, knowing what to expect. It reduces that mental bandwidth, and you can have that space in your brain to just enjoy the other person without having to overthink where you're going, what you're doing, what am I going to say, what am I going to answer. And you have that all prepared. So there's less anxiety, there's less stress, and you can really just be present in the date.
And so when people are working with you, are you practicing? Like, are you getting them in pairs and triads and saying like, okay, let's have a conversation that's one step beyond those short factual answers?
Yeah. So something we do with our clients is we'll do mock dates. So I will play the part of I'll play 3 different roles. So I'll play the part of somebody who doesn't shut up, that just monologues and keeps talking and talking and talking and doesn't let the other person get a word in. I'll play the role of somebody who gives those short factual answers, just 1-word responses. And then I'll play somebody who's a little bit more balanced. So we'll do, 5-minute bits of a back and forth date. And then we'll stop to give feedback and coaching. And then we'll move forward to the next character role.
That must be so helpful to reduce anxiety and build their confidence, because they're seeing that they can do it, and also getting feedback, I would assume, and encouragement from other people that are
and it helps us to figure out where their sticking points are, so that we can better coach them so they can be more successful on their dates.
That's amazing. So when you look at working with people that are struggling with this, do you find that because I find this when I'm working with someone, is like almost it positively impacts them in other parts of their life, even before they're like going on dates, like with friendships or at work. So do you see that this is not just, like learning how to date, but learning how to be more of yourself out in the world? Is this like, does it have a bigger impact than just their romantic life?
You can't silo social skills, right? You can't build social skills in one area of your life and not have it seep into other areas of your life. We have one client in the San Francisco Bay Area who came to us because he was struggling to manage his relationships with his colleagues. And one thing that was so cool about him being in the program is that his dad and sister were also kind of like participants in the program alongside him. And, they told us on one of our private coaching sessions that their relationship with him has changed. He is a much more amenable, happier person. His relationship with his grandma changed.
Their communication with each other changed. He would just come home from work, go into his room, close the door, and that would be the end. Now he comes home and he talks to his family, and they have a deeper relationship.
And we have another client, also happens to be in the Bay Area, who got a job in retail while he was working with us. And his mom walked into the store a few weeks after he started working, and she just started talking to people, and they didn't know that she was our client's mom. And people just started talking about how delightful he was. And it meant everything to her. But it's because when you're building your skills and your confidence in one area of life, it's going to seep into others. It's impossible not to.
So one other question I want to ask you, because I have a nephew who's probably almost 29 now, who's pretty autistic. But one of the things that I think is really interesting, and again, I'm not an expert by any means, but I feel like if you're neuroatypical and you're younger, you're sort of supported. There's support systems, right, that come in, and I think this is true for a lot of people. And then you like hit a certain age, you leave like a school system or you leave whatever, and then you're just supposed to fend for yourself. And I think a lot of people who are loved ones don't have the skills or the bandwidth or the training to continue the growth, right? And I think we're all human. Like, I think we should all do personal development. So can you just talk about like some of the things that keep people from doing this work as they get older and they're wanting to date and wanting to get help because of a stigma about coaching or that, you know, dating isn't a job skill, or, you know, people that are resistant to getting their loved one support like this?
I think you're absolutely right that until people turn 18 or sometimes 21, there's plenty of things out there for them. And some of them is good, some of it's good, and some of it doesn't move the needle an inch. And then there's this thing called the cliff, right? Where you hit this certain age and you fall off the cliff because you go from all these services to none. And yeah, it scares the pants off of parents. I would say, you know, we offer a free strategy session for families that want to, you know, explore how to help their son or daughter be more social and live a more vibrant social life. And I would say like 99% of the parents expressed to us this deep fear that they're going to not be on this planet one day, and their son or daughter doesn't have the friendships and relationships and community to be supported. And so it's going to fall on a sibling or fall on nobody. And it's incredibly scary for the parents. And it's why almost every parent talks about this with us. You know, I don't think there is a stigma around getting help like the help
That's amazing.
at all, because a lot of these young adults have been getting help their whole life.
Right.
The problem is twofold. Number one, they don't know that the help is out there.
Right.
Because remember, until like Love on the Spectrum, I was probably one of the only dating coaches out there, right? So people didn't even know to look for dating coaching help, for help building community, for help finding friendship. So one issue was definitely that, like the lack of knowledge that something was out there. The other problem, I think is obvious, is money.
Right.
Right. When you're a youngster, the school has services, the state pays for your services, and then you age out of that, and now suddenly like you need help, but you have to pay for it. And unfortunately, that's just kind of out of reach for a lot of families, which is really sad. You know, Llana and I are trying to solve this problem by figuring out, how to raise money to offer scholarships. But even the legality of that is not easy. You know, we've talked to so many lawyers who all have different opinions, and it's very, very hard to offer really quality services at a price point that's within reach of just about everybody. To the credit of some states, including the state of California, California has something called SDP, the Self-Determination Program. And for those people who qualify, the state will actually give you a budget of money that you can spend on services to advance your life. And we now have about half dozen, if not more, clients in our program whose tuition is paid for by California Self-Determination Program.
Oh my God, I love this.
Yeah. And we have a couple clients in New Jersey where the tuition for our program was reimbursed to the family. And then you have the state of New York that won't allow reimbursement for our program because, they only allow reimbursement for programs that are open to the general population and are not specific to people who have, disabilities or special needs, which is sad. But
that's like a whole other thing, right? Is advocacy, right? And how do you get this available, just like when they're young and they're getting OT and all of those sorts of things, right? Just so they can, it's like, it's really interesting, right? Like and this is a different conversation, but interesting in that, like, what we want for all humans, right, is to not just be functional, but to thrive.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I think that, we're like, okay, well, I'm getting by. That's enough. And I think what you're doing, and what we want for all our clients who are neurodivergent or not, is like, don't just settle for getting by. Like, you can learn how to thrive, and that's so empowering. So any sort of last tips for anyone who's listening, who's like, wow, they're talking about me, how they can show up as more of themselves with more confidence and get to the, I'd love, to get to the fifth date where you just get to say, no, it's not my match, instead of like, it didn't work out. Like I sabotaged it, or I don't believe in myself enough.
I hate to give this answer, but I really do think it's the right one. You have to have a mentor.
Yeah, no, it's so true.
We look at our client who got to the fifth date last week, and, as humans, we are not particularly amazing at understanding what we're doing wrong or what we're doing suboptimally. And, the fact of the matter is, like, this client who got to date 5, he was getting to dates 1 and 2 only, and things were going wrong. And we really had to sit down and figure out, okay, what's happening here? And we realized, for example, that one of the problems was that he was asking his dates to split the bill on the first date.
Oh, well.
And that was a real turnoff to them.
But it's just such a little tweak.
So easy to fix.
Yeah. It completely shifted his dating experience and his confidence. Like, once he made that tweak, and now he got to a 5th date, and he held the power to recognize that this is not right for me. I can't even describe to you how he was.
He was giddy.
He was giddy. He was like bouncing off his seat because he was so excited. And the things that he shared with, he's like, I am great at this. I am a great dater.
It was this, because he went from scarcity to abundance. Now he's like, wait a minute, I don't have to just take someone who will pick me or who's like says, sure, right? Like, I get to choose someone that's actually right for me, and that everyone deserves to know that they're that worthy. They get to. Yeah.
But on our weekly community calls, we have our clients share their celebrations, and he shared his celebration, last night, with our community, and he said, I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of what I did, and it's because of working with you. And I don't say that to pat myself on the back. I say that because it takes a mentor to really dig into what you're doing right and what's going wrong. And success and failure is oftentimes in those much more minute details. And if you try to go it alone, you end up, doing the same things over and over and over again, repeating your patterns, not breaking your patterns, and you end up with the same results.
And not even knowing that it could be something as simple, right? Or something that can be easily fixed, because Rust used to say you can't see the label from inside the jar, right? Like,
that's beautiful, right?
Yeah. Right. But because it's so true. I had a client the other day, I've been talking about this because it's just so simple. She went on a date. The guy didn't pay for her coffee. She was like, I would never go out with a guy who doesn't pay for my coffee. Right. And I was like, do you think you maybe were giving off friend vibes? And so I had her message him, and he was like, I was so confused and I didn't want to be that guy. And so the minute I didn't pay your coffee, I was like, oh God, I've really screwed up. He's like, please let me take you on a proper date, show you the gentleman that I am.
Oh.
Right. But she was giving him a signal, and he's a human. Right. And so all these little tweaks, you're like, oh, you mean I can just say that? Or, oh crap, I didn't, because I believe whether you're neurodivergent or not, I think men are confused about should I pay or not, because so many women could be offended, or insulted by the fact that guys are offering to pay. It's a very confusing world out there for all of us.
Confusing for women, yeah. Like, do I offer? Do I pull the wallet? Do I make that fake offer?
When are you guys going to be the coaches on Love on the Spectrum? Come on.
Tried for years. In fact, if you go back to their old media packet, there are all kinds of quotes from these articles in the Atlantic, and like I was in those articles. I've been trying to be their coach, and we actually had the creator of Love on the Spectrum, Keanu O'Cleary, come to our weekly client community call, and he came along with a casting director, and they interviewed 9 of our clients.
Of course.
They didn't make it onto the show.
They're looking for very specific people and diversity and all of that, and matches from the previous season. So but maybe one.
You guys are like matchmakers low key too.
Well, we work with matchmakers.
You do? Okay.
And a lot of our closest friends are matchmakers. And in fact, one of like the coolest collaborations that we have is we're very, very close with Eliza Ben Shalom, the Jewish matchmaker from Netflix.
Yes, I was like, that name seems, not that I watched reality dating shows or anything, guys, all the time. So you're in connection with her too.
Yeah, so we're on her coaching team, and when people who are on the spectrum come to her for matchmaking, she'll often, kind of nudge them to work with us on the skills. And we have those collaborations with probably about a half dozen other matchmakers, because a lot of people on the spectrum try to circumvent the social skills process by just having a matchmaker make introductions, and it actually it can work out pretty badly for everybody, right? The matchmaker doesn't know what to do. We'll oftentimes get calls from matchmakers being like, I think my client is autistic. What do I do about that? The autistic client, doesn't have successful dates. And then the person on the other side of the date is like, who did you set me up with? Why did you think that this was a good match? So we went to a matchmaking conference in Montreal this year and spoke there. We spoke at a matchmaking conference in New York. We spoke at a matchmaking conference in Israel. We're going to be speaking at a matchmaking conference in Philadelphia in a few months, because we're trying to get the matchmaking community on board with understanding what is autism, what's your role as a matchmaker, how can we team up and move the world into, in the right direction.
I think this is so huge. I mean, again, anyone who thinks that you can circumvent the social skills part by just getting a matchmaker or just going on the apps, and you have not had success, there's probably a reason. So
we talk about it a lot, by the way. A lot of neurodivergent people are on the apps, and I'm not telling you not to be on the apps, but what I tell people when they ask, why is it so hard for me? I say, well, the apps have so many hidden rules, right? And if your brain doesn't naturally absorb those hidden rules, you have to learn an entire ecosystem and how to navigate it. And once you've learned how to navigate it, all that gets you is a phone call or maybe a date. And then you still need all those in-person skills, to succeed on the date and get to the second one. So, in our program, we don't teach online dating skills, because I would rather focus on how to meet real people in real life, because ultimately that's what you're going to have to do to get to date 1, date 2, date 3, and more.
Right. And that's part of the problem of online dating right now, right? Like, is that there's so many people that are just hiding on the app, not ever taking it to the next level because they don't feel comfortable. They don't know how. And
our clients have been rejected time and time again. And for your average person, it's just normal to get ghosted on apps because it's a numbers game, and there's always the next person. So that's really defeating for people that have dealt with that their whole life.
You guys are amazing. I want everyone on the whole planet and galaxies beyond to know about you.
Thank you so much.
I think it's so great. So any sort of last words, like, and let me I'm going to ask it in this question. Do you think there are people that are out there that are dating, that are struggling, that are on the spectrum and may not know that?
100.
Yeah. That's
Okay, well, good. So can we just talk about that? Like, how do you know, like, how do you ask, what's the right question to ask yourself in a gentle and loving way?
Yourself, meaning if you think that you're autistic?
Yeah, like, what if you're saying, like, there's so many people that have no idea. What if someone's listening and they're like, am I? Like, I don't know. Like, what are the questions? I mean, I'm assuming there's especially a certain generation where this was undiagnosed and untreated. And people were like, well, they're just a little different, right? Like, so what are some questions or patterns that you could say, wow, maybe I should look at this for myself. Maybe I do need to diagnose myself or get some support in this way.
I think the biggest piece is really to think, like, historically, have I struggled with building those connections with other people? Like, you see everybody else around you connecting and having these deeper relationships with people, and that's not me. Is there a barrier that's causing that to be a struggle for me? I think that would be number one.
Yeah, I would say number two, going back to Steven Rodriguez, is, he went online, and there's some online resources where you can just kind of take like an online quiz.
Right. Yeah.
Questionnaire. And he went through the questionnaire, and that made him realize that, there's a very, very high likelihood that there's a label for his struggles. And then you have to go and get a proper diagnosis.
And I think that actually he was watching The Good Doctor, I think it was, and that came up on the show. And he was like, let me go take that. And that's how he ultimately got his diagnosis.
I love that. I love that the media is now supporting our differences, but not.
Sorry, I didn't know. I did not mean to.
I'm sure they're not doing it really perfectly. What were you going to say, Jeremy?
No, not at all. I was going to say that we have two people on our team. Stephen is one of them. The other is a wonderful woman named Cecile. Cecile is actually in the same business community that you and I are part of, along with Stephen. Cecile runs our strategy sessions, our initial strategy sessions. And what we love about her, first of all, she was an oncologist for 26 years, an oncology nurse for 26 years. Before that, she was a drill sergeant in the Canadian Army.
Super cool.
She's super cool. But she's a late diagnosed female on the spectrum. And once she got that diagnosis that she was on the spectrum, so much of what she was struggling with in life made sense to her. But, she's I don't mean to call her out for her age, but she's part of a generation where this is not really talked about.
Right.
I think for her, and I don't want to speak for her, but I really do believe that it was really liberating once she knew why she was struggling. And it's with an immense pride that we brought her onto our team to do those family strategy sessions, because from a place of really understanding what the struggle is, she is able to ask autistic and neurodiverse young adults and their parents, what's the dream? Where has it been going awry? What's been going wrong? Let's talk about what the path forward is. And we're really, really proud that we have her kind of as the first touch point when you are thinking about being part of our community.
That's amazing. I love that so much. So this is so inspiring and empowering. I just feel a lot of hope in talking to you both. And I wish you all the exposure and success and impact that you are. I can feel the fire of the belly.
Fire.
I love that.
You want to tell her how much fire there is? Tell her about her wedding.
Wedding night, we get to our hotel. I'm still in my dress, and we're very. We get back to our clients very quickly. So I'm in my dress trying to get out of it. Jeremy was messaging clients with their social questions and situations as I'm trying to figure out how to open all those teeny tiny buttons.
That is commitment.
I'm like, he put the phone away and didn't respond to any emails or anything until after the ceremony and after the reception. But
I think I love that story. See, you can work together successfully in your couple. Just have to figure it out. I love it. Ladies, first of all, if you know anyone who this might be helpful to, please share this episode with them, because I want to get the word out as much as possible. If this is something that you think would be helpful for you, please check out all the links in the show notes. Where can they start to follow you or learn more about you guys?
Our website is the best place. It's mybestsociallife.com. We have a bit about ourselves. We have our free trainings. And if you want to get in touch with us about doing a strategy session and maybe working together, you can just email Llana at ILANA@mybestsociallife.com.
Who doesn't want their best social life? I mean, come on.
right.
That's the best name ever. Ladies, whether you are neurodivergent or not, I feel like there's a lot of truth that was told here and relevant for all of us who are human, which at this point I think is everyone here at least, except if you're watching this on Zoom, you can't see. We edited it out, our little AI guy. So he's not human, but the rest of us are. And there's a lot to life check yourself about in this episode. So rewind it, think about it, and implement. In the meantime, we will see you next time. Bye-bye for now. Hey, thanks for tuning into today's show. So if being in an intimate relationship in which you feel 100% seen, heard, and accepted by a high caliber man is a priority for you right now, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit for working with me and my team at Dating with Dignity, here's what I want you to do. Just head over to DWD VIP, that's D as in dating, W, D as in dating, VIP.com, and book a call to speak with my team. We'll get on the phone with you for about 60 minutes and you'll get crystal clear on what's stopping you from finding true love right now. We'll also take a look at what you want to create, what you want your whole life to look like when you're able to finally be fully expressed as a woman in a healthy relationship with an incredible guy. And if we can help you get from where you are right now to where you want to be, we will show you the fastest path possible that makes sense for you to do that. We help smart, successful women all over the world solve this one missing piece in their life so they can finally have it all. So to see if we can help you do the same thing, head over to DWDVIP.com. I'm Marni Battista, and let's talk soon.